Hey, my name is Lenn Johnson from LJE Products, and today we're installing the whiteout light kit on a Polaris Axys snowmobile. This kit we're going to show you how to install, and it's fairly easy. Everything you're going to need is going to come in this package. This is a pre-production kit. The production kits will have labels on them and stuff like that. First thing that you need to do is get all the body panels off your snowmobile. You start with removing the side panels and then you remove the top. If you're not sure how to do that, refer to your owner's manual. Once you've got access, you need to get to the battery compartment. Here, I've already gone ahead and disconnected the battery, and I've got a couple screwdrivers wedged in here to hold things open so you have easy access to everything you're going to need to do. Alright, next thing you need to do is take the kit out of the package, and we have these nifty little waterproof quick connects on here that you need to undo so you can install the wiring harness, and you can also install the light strip. So I'm going to wiggle and pull until it comes apart. Wiggle and pull until it comes apart. They only go together one way, so you can't mess them up, if you notice on the connector. At this point, I am prepping the surface where the light's going to mount with the supplied alcohol wipes. This is super important, and you also want to remember that you need to do this in a warm environment. You can't do this outdoors in your driveway in the middle of winter. You need to have it at least 60 degrees where you're doing the installation. Otherwise, the 3M adhesive is not going to adhere to the plastic of the nose cone of the sled very well. The easiest way to remove the release liner on the LED strip, and you can see this is flexible, is just take a razor knife and grab the edge of the release liner. Once you have the release liner removed, you're exposing the 3M adhesive on the back of the strip. We're going to be putting it right in this area of the nose cone. Now it's important, if you just brought your sled in from outside and it's freezing cold, even though it's 60 degrees or so in your garage, you might want to take a heat gun and heat this area up, because this is not going to stick to a cold plastic sled. What you do now is you're going to lay the cable into the slot between the bumper and the nose cone, and make sure that this is as far up as it could be. And you're going to lay the inside edge right onto the inside edge of this surface of the nose cone. And once you feel that you've got it laid in there properly, you can peel it off a couple times till you get it right, because the glue doesn't set up immediately. Using your thumb, press it in really hard, and make sure you press the edges in too, because you don't want snow and ice to get in behind here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to prep the area where we're going to put the cable clamps that are going to hold the wiring harness secured so it can't get into the muffler in the front of the snowmobile. So using the alcohol wipe, come in here and wipe down all these areas in the front, right on the nose. So once you have the wiring harness in your hands, you can disconnect the switch. There's terminal 1, 2, 3 on here. We're just going to remove them for now. Put the switch out of the way. And now you can get the harness ready to be routed through the snowmobile. Next step is to route the wiring harness from the exhaust side of the snowmobile to the other side of the snowmobile. While routing the wire, you need to make sure that you stay away from anything sharp, anything moving, or anything hot. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to route behind the coolant bottle. And if you notice, the recoil cord is here, and you don't want the recoil cord rubbing on the wire, so you need to pick a route where you can stay away from that, or zip tie it to something to keep it away. So I'm going to zip tie it to the brake line, which is right in here. And then I run it over the top next to the coil across the other side of the sled, and I leave plenty of slack in there so I can reach in and grab it once I get on the other side of the snowmobile. So I've got the two wires routed through. I'm going to pull a bunch of slack, and I'm right around the computer on the snowmobile right now. Leave yourself plenty of slack because you could pull it back after once you make all the connections in the front of the snowmobile. If you notice, I've also removed the spare belt holder and the spark plug wrench so that I can wire tie my way along this front bumper support. Next thing you want to do is make your connections to your LED strips. It doesn't matter which wire goes to which one. And you can't put it on wrong because if you notice there's a notch and a groove and it can only go in one way. Make sure you gently press it in, and that forms a watertight barrier so that moisture won't get into the connections and ruin them down the road. And now I have them both plugged in. We're going to use the clips that I've supplied with in the kit, which have a release liner, which I've already released, and I'm going to stick them in places that will hold the wiring harness away from the hot exhaust. Important to do this or you're going to melt your wires. I give you plenty of clips to do this. Alright, you're going to notice that I've already put in some of the clamps that I'm going to need to keep the wires away from the exhaust. So I have one here, I have a couple in the middle, one over here, and I have one over here. This is an existing clamp from another kit that I had in there. You can also put one right here if you want. And that will keep the wires away from the hot exhaust. At this point, we're going to now clip the wire into the clips to secure it. If you notice, I have everything routed away from there now, and the wires should not touch the exhaust. At this point, I give you 10 to 12 wire ties in the kit that you're going to use to secure the wiring harness to the front bumper, and then throughout the rest of the snowmobile to get the wiring back to where the switch location is. As you see, I've got a zip tie here, a zip tie here, zip tie here, and you can go under here and go up through, you can go over the top, it doesn't matter. I have another zip tie up here to secure the wire. It's not too tight, but it's snug. Quick review. We've got the strips mounted to the nose cone. We've got the wiring harness all tied in, strain relieved with zip ties running the wiring harness back along the front bumper assembly, over the airbox, and then down under the airbox pod and across, away from sharp objects, pull cords, fuel lines, all that stuff. You got to route it out of the way so that the wiring harness can't get damaged or can't chafe from bouncing around down the trail. This particular snowmobile is a 2018 Assault, and I prototyped many things on it. So I've already got a couple of switches on it for different lights that I've been testing and designing. But you really need to drill a hole for your new switch right up on this console. And if you look at my big switch, this is kind of where you want to be. But you're going to need a step bit or a spade bit, some kind of bit that can drill the proper size hole. So I just drilled out my hole for my switch. Now we're going to pass the wires up through. And make sure you're following my written instructions on this, because it gives you the size bit you need and a better location for the hole. Once I pass the wires up through the hole from the harness, you're going to connect them to the proper terminals. Again, refer to the diagram on the written instructions for the procedure to put the switch in. Once you've connected your 3 wires to the backlit switch, you're going to insert that through the hole. And the I is on and the O is off. So the I faces forward to the front of the snowmobile. And just press it in place till it snaps in. You'll feel it snap in. And now you can take a peek and it's pretty much right in place where it needs to be. Again, we're talking about this switch, not my switch for another light kit that I have on the snowmobile. The next step is to secure the wires with the wire ties that come with your kit. And if you notice right here, here's the pull cord. And what you don't want happening is this pull cord rubbing on the wires when you pull on it. So you have to route everything along the brake line and this long reinforcement tube that supports the whole steering assembly. So what you do is you just start up near the top, get the wires away from the cord, zip tie them against the brake line, and just work your way down around the brake rotor, which is right here, and the brake caliper. You got to stay away from there too. And you notice Polaris already has a harness that's tucked up against this knee panel, and you can zip tie against that and bring the wires down towards the battery. So now we're going to show you that we've zip tied, or tie wrap, whatever you want to call these, all the wiring harness away from the pull cord. So if I pull on the pull cord, I'm checking, it's not rubbing anything. I got my wires up to my switch. I've got the wires routed around the brake caliper. You're going to want to leave access to the fuse holder so that if you pop a fuse, you can get to this with everything reassembled. Now we're going to make our connections to the battery. What I like to do here is I like to take the positive cable, the red wire from the harness, and I like to route it through the battery boot cover for the positive terminal. I'm going to stick that wire terminal right on top. I take the screw that I took out of the battery. I take a Phillips screwdriver. Remember, your ground's not connected yet because you do your ground last. Ground comes off first and goes on last. Get your battery terminal screw threaded in. And make sure you follow the orientation of what I'm doing here. I like to take a 10mm box end wrench and snug this down, because if you don't get these snug and they vibrate out, you're going to have a bad connection, you're going to have an issue. After you've done that, you take the battery boot and you slide it back over the positive terminal. Now we're going to do the negative terminal. So this is a 2018 sled. This may be a little different than a 2020 or a 2021 VR1 or Indy with an 850 motor or a 650 motor, but if you just pay attention to the orientation of these terminals, you understand how it works. So next we're going to take the negative terminal along with this negative terminal from the battery, and the negative terminal from the wiring harness on the original snowmobile. And we're going to make this connection next. Again, using a Phillips, get the screw started. and then orientate the wires so they're all facing the same direction, and take your 10mm ratchet and snug down that terminal, making sure it's nice and snug. Don't over tighten it or you'll bend those lead terminals right out of the battery. Now we're ready to organize the wires with more zip ties. So I left the extra length of the wire ties so you can kind of see where those are oriented. There's obviously more wire than you need here, and I do that so that this kit will fit multiple different snowmobiles that Polaris makes. And any excess wire, you just need to coil it, wrap it around, back to itself. Make it nice and neat. Again, make sure it's away from sharp things, hot things. Then use a nice sharp pair of cutters to cut those wire ties off. You cut them nice and flush. That way if you're in here doing maintenance, chain case oil, stuff like that, changing your brake pads, you're not going to get cut by the sharp ends of the zip ties. Now that I've got everything wired in place, I'm just going to go around and make sure nothing's touching anything. Make sure there's no way that the wires can bounce around and get down near the hot exhaust. And I'm ready at this point to test the lights, so I hit the switch. And if you did everything right, that's what you're going to see. At this point, you're ready to put your snowmobile back together. So any of you that are mechanically inclined have done this before, you know how it all goes back together. But real quickly, I'll just give you a quick rundown. Side panels need to go back on. So take out the tools you use to hold those open, and you got to put your plastic rivets back in the right sequence to hold all this back together. Not that bad to put this kit in your snowmobile. It should take about an hour to an hour and a half. The reason I came up with this was because I wanted a light when I shut my sled off at night. So if I'm sitting on the side of the trail, I can still see right around me. And if I'm working on my friend's sled because it broke down, I have a light. Another reason I came up with this is when we got to the cabin in the winter, you know, it's blown in with snow, you got to shovel the snow off the porch. Well, I came up with a light so that I could not have to hold a flashlight in my mouth as I'm shoveling my way to the front door. Another nice thing about this is it doesn't use very much energy. It's about 5 watts of power to draw, but it puts out quite a bit of lumens of light. I think it's around almost 1,000 lumens between both lights. So 500 lumens a strip. Very, very efficient and nice and bright and powerful. The other cool thing is it just looks good. Accents your sled, makes it stand out from your buddy's sled. That's another reason I came up with it. I've been working on this design since 2015, and that's the final product. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks for supporting us at LJE Products. Thanks for watching our video, and please subscribe to my daughter Brooke Johnson's YouTube channel, and you can also follow her on Instagram and Facebook.